It doesn't take long to realize that Busch Gardens' newest roller coaster is no ordinary drive through the German countryside. The interest and interference with the forest makes it angry. Cars rented to tourists disappear, and their passengers are never heard from again. When Big Bad Wolf closed after the 2009 season, it took a piece of history out of Busch Gardens, and it would take a very significant effort to replace it in a way that would do the park justice. For the 2012 season, 3 years after the Wolf was retired, Busch Gardens was ready to share what they had been working on all this time. This was Verbolten, a multi-launch, multi-dimensional coaster from the German manufacturer, Zier. Part indoors, part outdoors, and featuring a big surprise in the middle. The name Verbolten was derived from the German word Verboten, or banned. Its theme being a joyride through the German countryside, being hit by a lightning bolt, and swerving into the Black Forest, encountering all the terror inside. This would max out at 53 miles an hour and have no inversions, making it a family-friendly thrill coaster. The park wanting this to be a true replacement for Big Bad Wolf, the coaster a lot of parents let their kids ride to introduce them to roller coasters, and hoping Verbolten could fill the same role. One of the license plates on the trains even reads Wolf-Xing, or Wolf Crossing, an homage to the ride it replaced, and even recreate the famous drop into the Rhine River, reusing Big Bad Wolf's footers to do so. This would have a 48-inch height limit, no shoulder restraints, and 5 trains to keep the line moving. With a nod to the problems the park had with Mock Tower that year, Vice President for Design and Engineering Larry Giles said they would get this ride open on time. Now overseen by General Manager Carl Lum, coming over from Busch Gardens Tampa as Vice President of Finance. Busch Gardens Williamsburg worked hard to get construction done over the winter, nearly 3,000 feet of track in total, a well-themed queue and station included, and it opened to the public on May 18, 2012. Lum said about Verbolten and Mock Tower, "This is the capstone of a 2-year rejuvenation project of the Germany section of the park. This represents our largest capital investment ever." The ride opened to rave reviews, its theming and special effects making it more than just a normal coaster, and the 16-foot freefall mid-ride was something hardly anyone had ever experienced on a coaster. If a ride through the Black Forest wasn't scary enough, Howl-O-Scream kicked off on a Friday in mid-September where pass holders could bring a friend for free. But right before the event wrapped up for the season, Hurricane Sandy rolled in and shut the park down. This rolled right into Christmas Town, the park offering online tickets for $6.75, a deal so good it caused a flood of internet traffic and crashed the website. Verbolten would be part of the Christmas Town lineup, as would Mock Tower, renamed Knocked Tower for the event, but instead of lifting you up 246 feet and dropping you down, it would act as an observation tower, lifting up and dropping gently, giving guests a great view of the lights. At the end of the year, Busch Gardens' parent company, SeaWorld Entertainment, filed for an initial public offering, hoping to raise $100 million from selling stock. Following the massive investment of 2012, 2013 was a quiet year. The park would revamp its entrance, highlighting its award-winning landscaping, and there would be a new exhibit called Birds of Prey Up Close, where guests could get up close and personal with falcons. This would also be the first year of the Food and Wine Festival, offering samples from all over the world not usually found in the park. For Verbolten's first birthday in May, the park celebrated by giving away a 2013 Mini Cooper Roadster. At this point, single-day admission cost $70 for adults and $60 for kids. SeaWorld Entertainment was making good money from Busch Gardens ticket sales, but once they officially went public in April, their stock jumped almost 20% in the first day, opening at $27 and closing at $32.59. Blackstone would still be the majority shareholder, but there was a new investor that became a partial owner that not a lot of people saw coming: the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA. In a statement, PETA said, "Our first order of business as part owners of SeaWorld is getting the orcas out, including Corky, who has been enslaved by SeaWorld for 44 years. This was just a precursor of the animal rights issues regarding SeaWorld's orcas, and in the summer of 2013, the controversy hit a breaking point.
A whale has eaten one of the trainers.
Tilikumbo is the one that went after her.
This is the worst thing that I've ever done.
On July 19, 2013, Blackfish was released to the public, focused on Tilikum, an orca held at SeaWorld Orlando and who killed a trainer in front of a live audience in 2010, and focused on the practice of holding orcas in captivity. SeaWorld responded to the film, saying it was inaccurate, putting a page on their website called The Truth About Blackfish. Still, the damage had been done, losing $15.9 million in the aftermath. SeaWorld stock dropping 33%, and government action was launched to stop the practices of keeping orcas in captivity. CEO Jim Atchison would resign at the end of 2014, the stock price falling 44% by the end of the year. This would start a dramatic change in the direction of SeaWorld, and even though the Busch Gardens parks didn't have orcas and weren't the center of attention, they were part of this new strategy, and that was to shift their focus more on rides. And by the end of 2013, Busch Gardens filed paperwork to build a new 156-foot attraction in the Festa Italia section of the park, and speculation ran wild. Some thought they would retheme Festa Italia entirely, others thought they may recreate Drachenfire, and others believed it could be a wooden coaster. While this was expected to open in 2014, by the start of the season, it was obvious that would not be the case. Guests would have to settle for A British Invasion, a new musical in the Globe Theatre called London Rocks, and the park would offer their award-winning landscaping expertise, setting up a contest on Facebook to give a free front yard makeover to one lucky winner. In June, a bomb threat caused the park to close and evacuate the England section of the park, this due to a note that was found in the bathroom. The section was closed for 3 hours while authorities searched and found nothing. But as the season went on, the mystery project was rising in Festa Italia, and it was clear 2015 would be the year of the Daredevil.
What does the Daredevil feel before he revs his engine? What is he thinking before he enters the Inferno? You tell us. Tempesto, the daring new roller coaster, has arrived at Busch Gardens. Inspired by the greatest daredevils in history for the daredevil in you. Tempesto, new at Busch Gardens.
Tempesto would not be an original model. Rather, it would be the Skyrocket 2 model from the American manufacturer, Premier Rides. 2 had already opened in the last 3 years, and Tempesto would be the third. The first to feature 3-car trains to increase capacity. This would have a swing launch, the train rocking back and forth, its third launch getting up to 64 miles an hour and its 150-foot peak, go into an inline twist, and spiral down into a non-inverting loop to finish. The very skinny, compact coaster lasting 55 seconds. This would open to the public on April 25th, kicking off Busch Gardens' 40th anniversary, the park offering free admission on opening weekend for anyone born in 1975. Elmo would invade Busch Gardens on opening weekend, bringing his Elmo Rocks musical stage show from Sesame Place in Philadelphia, and the park's new show was Roll Out the Barrel, located in the Fest House, following a fictional German town celebrating 40 years of making beer. One thing the park would not feature would be live concerts, officials stating they wanted to focus on Tempesto in the new shows. Meanwhile, by the end of 2015, SeaWorld made a decision to pull the plug on their orca shows in the San Diego park, turning the existing show into a more educational exhibition, and this was done due to guest feedback and a drop in attendance. This was just another important chapter in the story of the evolution of the SeaWorld chain, and shortly after Busch Gardens opened for the 2016 season, they announced yet another new coaster, their very first wooden coaster, located in the New France section, and it would be Viking themed. An online poll was set up to name the new coaster, and it came down to Viking Raider, Battle Clash, or Invader. It wasn't just the name. Fans would have a say in some of the design elements, including the trains and the ride's logo. This was all part of an elaborate marketing campaign, a series of videos called BGW Project 2017, teasing the new ride all the way back to January. As communications manager Ron Vampel said, "This is the first time we've done something to this extent. This really is a fan coaster." The 2016 season would be overseen by a new president, David Cromwell, coming over from San Diego's Aquatica Water Park, replacing Carl Lum, who moved on to SeaWorld San Antonio. His focus was on service. He knew Busch Gardens had the beautiful landscape, the astounding collection of rides, and all the shows. But the park could improve by focusing on customer service. The park took a step back in 2016, preparing for a big 2017, opening a new restaurant in the San Marco Village, Marco Polo's Marketplace, the Brauhaus Craft Beer Room in the Fest House, and a new show in the Royal Palace Theatre, All for One, a contemporary take on the story of the Three Musketeers. As guests came and went from the new show, they could see the steel structure rising, the wooden track taking its place on top, and Busch Gardens' newest coaster had a name. This was Invader.
The Vikings are coming. Join the battle aboard Invader, Busch Gardens' first wooden coaster. With 9 airtime hills, everyone will hear your family's battle cry. The new Invader, this April at Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
One thing was clear early on. Invader was meant to appeal to a wide audience. Its 46-inch height limit was below that of the extreme coasters, standing 74 feet tall and 2,000 feet long. Family-friendly, but by no means boring for thrill-seekers. As David Cromwell said, for many kids, this is going to be their first big kid roller coaster. Invader would open on April 7th, and people were surprised how this packed such a big punch. One writer said, It's that first dip with a tunnel. That one takes your breath away a little bit. It was those dips and tight turns that made this 48-mile-an-hour coaster seem a lot faster than it was, by design. Great Coasters International built this coaster, and President Claire Hine compared it to riding a vehicle through a forest. Trees going by your head so fast, you think you're going faster than you are. And that's the same way with a wooden coaster like this. Invader, with its mass appeal, drew long lines in its opening months, but that wasn't all the park had to offer in 2017. The Summer Nights concert series returned. The Voice 2012 winner Cassidy Pope kicking off the season, a summer that included acts like Kool and the Gang, Lifehouse, Switchfoot, and Neo. Under the new SeaWorld business plan, Busch Gardens was planning rides at a breakneck speed. From the start of 2017, it was announced the park would be getting a state-of-the-art, first-of-its-kind virtual reality ride for 2018, and by late summer, they were already filing permits for a 315-foot attraction, that project being dubbed Busch Gardens Madrid. Permits for that were quickly approved by the James City County Board of Supervisors. Not to get ahead of themselves, by late September, the park was ready to unveil their 2018 attraction, Battle for Ire, a motion-based theater simulator, riders wearing 360-degree virtual headsets, telling the story of Addie, a fierce, feisty warrior, leading riders on an adventure through her Irish homeland. As Larry Giles said, "We're gonna take you places you never thought possible." This would replace Europe in the Air in the Ireland section of the park. Park President David Cromwell would not usher in Battle for Ire. He would step down to pursue an opportunity with a sports franchise, replaced by Kevin Lemke, the Vice President of Culinary Operations at Busch Gardens Tampa. Lemke would adopt the effort to phase out season passes and start pushing memberships. This would come in 3 tiers, basic for $12 a month, unlimited for $17 a month, and Premier for $22 a month. The perks getting better as you pay more, and Premier including admission to the entire SeaWorld Entertainment chain. The 2018 season would carry on without the Curse of Dark Castle, closing for good in late January, serving 13 years at the park. This was made obsolete by Battle for Ire, set to open to the public on March 30th, but delayed 2 weeks to April 13th. The very next day, planning documents were released to add a Sesame Street theme park in Williamsburg, exploring the possibility of adding a third gate to the resort, in addition to Busch Gardens and Water Country. SeaWorld already operated a Sesame Street park in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, but the year prior, they struck a deal with Sesame Workshop to build a new park by 2021, this being located in Southern California, and this deal opened up the possibility of more Sesame Street parks in the chain. While Battle for Ire was drawing big crowds, the park celebrated Loch Ness Monster's 40th birthday by offering $40 tickets for a week in June. Lightbounds made an appearance in the summer, a Ukrainian group of 8 dancing in luminescent material, making Ireland's Abbey Stone Theatre their home. The park also had not 1, but 2 mishaps involving fire that summer. Escape from Pompeii having its roof catch on fire and closing the ride down for a few days, and an employee being injured when the train caught fire in August. By year's end, Busch Gardens was looking to expand even more, asking permission to build into a resource-protected buffer area, wanting to add on to the Italy section. This received unanimous approval, and that was on the heels of another waiver they filed for the Ireland section of the park, a ride they were ready to unveil in 2019, Finnegan's Flyer. This Scream and Swing would be manufactured by the Utah-based S&S Worldwide. 32 riders swinging back and forth, riders reaching 81 feet in the air and reaching max speeds of 45 miles an hour. It would open on May 3rd, the latest in the flurry of investments in the Busch Gardens and every park around the country. Attendance booming nationwide, especially in the SeaWorld chain, up 8.6% going into the 2019 season. These rides were a big reason, but Busch Gardens also wrote its shows, including Celtic Fire. That gained national recognition, winning USA Today's poll for the country's best theme park show. Still, it was clear that SeaWorld was banking on its rides to drive people into the park, but not every idea was carried out exactly to plan. Earlier in the 2019 season, the park announced the cancellation of Busch Gardens Madrid, the attraction that won approval to rise 355 feet above the grade, or 435 feet above sea level. The truth was, this wasn't exactly true. Sure, the original plans for Project Madrid was to be one monster Intamin Giga Coaster, but rather than being cancelled, the plans just changed, and this monster coaster would be divided into 2 smaller projects, one on either side of the Rhine River. The 355-foot shuttle coaster on the old Drachenfire plot of land would never come to be, but the coaster on the Festa Italia side of the river was set in motion, and it was godly.
The might of 5 Roman gods in one record-breaking coaster. Strength, speed, power. Witness the force of the new Pantheon. The world's fastest multi-launch coaster reached 73 miles per hour with 15 airtime hills, flying forward and backward with a 95-degree drop. Epic thrills come together in the new Pantheon.
Coming in 2020 to Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
The world's fastest multi-launch coaster, Pantheon was sold as a 150-second high-speed thrill ride, having a swing launch and a switch track, adding some razzle-dazzle to its elite forces and elements. This promised to be the park's most extreme large-scale custom coaster since Griffin 13 years prior. As this was being built in Festa Italia, general manager Kevin Lemke left the company in August, only to come back in November, resuming his role and ready to usher Pantheon and Busch Gardens into the new decade. But the park, the industry, the country, and the world was about to face a challenge nobody could have ever seen coming.
Well, today the World Health Organization will meet to decide whether or not to declare the coronavirus outbreak a global health emergency. Now, the mysterious respiratory infection is spreading across the globe. Well, turning now to an update on the coronavirus. There's a possibility it has reached Virginia. Right now, the Virginia Department of Health is examining 3 people who may have the virus.
As most of the regional parks were gearing up for their spring 2020 openings, the coronavirus pandemic put that all at risk. By mid-March, Busch Gardens announced it would not open until April. Once April came around, SeaWorld Entertainment announced it would be furloughing 90% of its full-time staff. By May, the park was still closed. 95% of its workforce had been furloughed, and SeaWorld was looking to secure a federal loan to pay its expenses, losing an average of $25 million per month while being closed. By June, the park was still closed, and the only activity was a James City School's graduation being held in the England parking lot. As many other parks around the country were starting to reopen, the state of Virginia wanted to limit entertainment venues to a maximum of 1,000 people, a number both Kings Dominion and Busch Gardens called unsustainable, and they chose to remain closed, officially announcing Pantheon would not open in 2020 regardless of what happened from that point on. By August, Busch Gardens had an idea: filter those 1,000 people into designated areas of the park. They would hold their coasters and craft brews event, opening only select rides like Invader, Griffin, Loch Ness Monster, and Finnegan's Flyer, charging $44.99 for a ticket and requiring reservations in advance. All guests over 2 years old having to wear a mask, indoors and outdoors. By late summer, coasters and craft brews transformed into the Taste of Busch Gardens, Alpengeist and Verbolten being added to the ride lineup, and the park having 2 time slots, bringing in 2,000 people per day, but only having 1,000 in the park at a time. This helped bring in some money and save some jobs, although only 300 people were needed instead of the 4,000 for a normal season. Kevin Lemke said this disruption would take 2 to 4 years to recover from. Meanwhile, Kings Dominion announced they would remain closed for the entire 2020 season, changing their tune at the very end of the year, opening for a special holiday event. In Williamsburg, guests would enjoy the Busch Gardens Christmas celebration, $59.99 buying admission, 1 entree, a dessert, and 1 non-alcoholic beverage. They won approval to host 4,000 guests at a time, quadrupling their prior limitation. Trying to recoup their losses, Busch Gardens decided to stay open in January, February, and March of 2021, the first time it would be open in those winter months in the park's history. They would host limited capacity events like winter weekends, Mardi Gras, and St. Patrick's Day, opening Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and able to host up to 4,000 people. However, as the COVID-19 vaccine was rolling out and the economy started to open up, Busch Gardens and every industry nationwide found themselves having a problem finding employees. Busch Gardens and a lot of theme parks around the country were missing their international students. Those numbers way down because of the virus, and they were forced to offer higher wages, better benefits, and employee bonuses. With the limitations on attendance, SeaWorld Entertainment was not ready to roll out all their new coasters yet, including Pantheon. After a summer full of questions, in September the park announced the ride would be pushed once again and open in 2022. They tried to draw people into the park in 2021 by reintroducing summer nights, 35 nights of concerts in the Royal Palace Theater, and expanded hours. They also brought back Howl-O-Scream for 2021, but had to scramble to change their security policies after dealing with increased fighting. Large bags were banned, all bags were banned after 4 p.m., and more security was added. Winter weekends would carry on into 2022, but the biggest bombshell came in February. That's when SeaWorld attempted to bring both Virginia parks under the same umbrella, offering Cedar Fair $3.4 billion to acquire their portfolio. It took less than 2 weeks for Cedar Fair to officially reject the offer, and almost 2 years later, they would agree to a merger with Six Flags, the same company that made their own offer to buy out Cedar Fair in 2019. The buyout didn't work as SeaWorld hoped, but the start of the 2022 season was an exciting one. They were set to open all their big 2020 coasters 2 years later, and for Busch Gardens, that meant Pantheon. On March 25th, Pantheon was open to the public, and it was as advertised. As Jonathan Smith, Busch Gardens Vice President of Rides and Engineering, said, "It's a once-in-a-generation type of ride right here." 178 feet tall, 73 miles an hour, 2 inversions, over 3,300 feet of track. Right away, Pantheon became one of America's finest coasters. Busch Gardens gave itself a PR boost by launching their 10-day coaster challenge, riders having to board Alpengeist, Griffin, Verbolten, Invader, and Pantheon all within 1 hour, sharing their feat on social media. It wasn't 6 months after Pantheon's debut that Busch Gardens was ready to unveil their next big thing, and this time they were going dark. A supernatural force is imminent as explorers discover they are evading more than just a raging storm. Dark Coaster would adopt a sinister take on a family-friendly launch coaster, this being a straddle coaster from Intamin, 2,400 feet of track and a max speed of 36 miles an hour, winding around in the dark. The coaster located in the Dark Castle. The Curse of Dark Castle having closed down in 2018 and serving as a haunted house in Santa's workshop during their seasonal events. As Dark Coaster was going up, Mock Tower was coming down. The 240-foot drop tower opened in 2011 and would have its final day of operation on January 8, 2023, the park giving 2 weeks notice so people could get their last rides. Dark Coaster opened to members on May 11th, opening to the public on May 19th, described by park officials as scary but not too scary, and in the end, a family thrill ride. Guests who arrived for the grand opening would notice a sweeping change in the park's operations. They would no longer accept cash in their stores and restaurants. The park was officially cashless as of May 11, 2023, with guests able to convert cash to a prepaid Visa card using a kiosk. Unlike in past years, there wasn't a big ride reveal for the following season. Instead, Busch Gardens focused on restoring a classic. Their first big coaster, Loch Ness Monster, was wrapping up its 46th season, and it was announced that it would get a complete overhaul. A new soundtrack, new storytelling elements, more than 900 feet of track replaced by premier rides, and new in-ride theming elements. It would close down for this renovation after Halloween. As the calendar flipped to 2024, permits were filed to add a 2025 attraction on a 4-acre plot of land behind the Fest House, also known as the plot of land Drachenfire sat on for 10 years, and this would ring in the park's 50th anniversary. While those plans were being finalized, Loch Ness Monster reopened to the public in May, having more of a modern feel but still having its classic layout. As Ace's Elizabeth Ringas said, "Grandparents remember it, parents remember it, and now the kids are going to remember it. That's what really makes it special." As the summer of 2024 came to a close and Howl-O-Scream opened in early September, security faced a new set of challenges. 2 large groups of young people got into a fight around 10 p.m., prompting a response from police to disperse the crowd. A few days later, an 18-year-old man was stabbed inside the park's France area. This pushed the park to implement a chaperone policy. Guests younger than 16 needing an adult at least 21 years old with them after 4 p.m., adopting a growing trend in the theme park world at the time. It was also appropriate that during Howl-O-Scream, Busch Gardens revealed their 2025 project, a family-friendly inverted coaster themed to the long-lost but beloved coaster, Big Bad Wolf. A website was launched for guests to name the new coaster, having a choice between Wolf's Sturm, Wolf's Reign, or Geisterwolf. In the end, none of those choices won, and it turns out all the wolf wanted was revenge. "23 years after Drachenfire was removed from the Oktoberfest section, it finally found its replacement. This opened to the public on May 23, 2025, a perfect coaster to celebrate Busch Gardens' 50th anniversary, even incorporating elements from the original Big Bad Wolf, such as the run through the village and the second lift followed by a straight drop. This was one of B&M's family inverted coasters, a rare model from that manufacturer, but gaining popularity. And that brings us to today, right in the middle of Busch Gardens' 50th anniversary celebration, celebrating the milestone with a big sign in the front of the park, and smaller signs posted throughout the park, highlighting the biggest rides and events from each of its 5 decades. Starting off in 1969 as a sideshow to the new brewery, all the way to being named the world's most beautiful park for over 30 years, adding world-class and award-winning shows and rides. Busch Gardens Williamsburg is easily one of the greatest parks in the world, and its future looks bright for its next 50 years. Thanks for watching the final episode of the 6-part documentary. If you could drop a like and share this video with anyone who may be interested, I would really appreciate it. This is a massive project and I appreciate the support. Let me know if you have any fond memories at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I first got to this park in 2008. That's when I rode my first ever B&M Hyper in Apollo's Chariot, and wouldn't get back there for 11 years. But since 2019, I found my way back 3 times, and my daughter named this her favorite park of all time for 3 years, until it was dethroned by Epic Universe. I want to thank my Patreons. If you want bonus access, bonus content, and have your name listed at the end of each video, check my links below and join. Thank you all again for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you all in the next one.